Another beautiful day in Salvador. Going for another long walk today of about 3 hours. Uphill and then back downhill. I like looking down the side streets of the Pelourinho. Very interesting and beautiful. I always feel very lucky to live here every single day. And here's another one of these side streets that fascinate me. I love this street art. But who needs street art when you've got views like this? And perhaps the Pelourinho's most famous view here, that blue church in front of us, the Igreja dos Pretos, built by African slaves because they were not allowed to worship inside other Catholic churches, so they built that church by hand. One never gets tired of this view right here. It's iconic. I'm about halfway home and I stopped in a small but very upscale shopping center and I got a bottle of fresh coconut water, very refreshing and natural, and I got a copy of the Salvador's daily paper Ataji. It's been years since I've read an actual physical newspaper. I mean, I read the newspaper every day. I have an online subscription to the New York Times, but to actually read a newspaper like in the old days, it's the first time in a long time. But I need to rest because I'm halfway home and my feet are hurting. The question I'm asking today, asking in general and of myself, is at what point does one have the right, if I may use that word, to say that a place is your hometown? At what point or at any point do I have the right to say Salvador is my hometown? Or am I forever required to say that New York City is my hometown? New York... No, não tenho centavo. It's never ending, sorry. I was born in New York City. In Manhattan, to be precise, but sorry, I got distracted. I lived in New York City only a total of 9.5 years of my life. I was born in Manhattan and spent my first 7.5 years in Manhattan. Then left. Spent the next 5 years in the state of Pennsylvania, but would never call myself a native Pennsylvanian, or that Pennsylvania was a little tiny, it was barely a town. We didn't actually even live in a town. Whatever that place was a place that I turned my back on and never stepped foot in again once we left when I was 12 and a half. I cannot call Sarasota, Florida my hometown. It's a place I would spend the summer as a very young child with my grandparents, and after we left Pennsylvania, my mother left husband number 2. We lived there for a year, but while I can say I have roots in Sarasota, Florida, it most definitely has never been a hometown. Then there was Los Angeles, where I lived a total of 4.5 years from age 15 to 20, with the exception of a year after high school where I went back to New York. But again, that was a city that I never really adapted to. I never understood LA. The cliche is that LA is a series of suburbs in search of a city. but there's some truth to the cliche. I always felt that. Being from New York City, LA never felt like a city to me, and I turned my back on it when I left at age 20. Now San Francisco, where I lived a total of 43 years, from the age 20 to 3 years ago, up to 3 years ago, I felt comfortable saying that San Francisco was my hometown. Over 4 decades, I think, qualifies. And I ask now, at what point can I, or if I ever can, call Salvador Bahia my hometown? I've lived here as a permanent resident, legal permanent resident, full-time, for the past 3 years. I first started coming to Salvador 21 years ago, in the year 2003. I got married here in Salvador in the year 2008. I've been coming here every year, except for a small, a short period where I didn't come for about 4 years. Took a break. But other than that, I've been coming for up to 6-month stays every year since 2003. As I said, I am now a full-time permanent legal resident. Can I ever call myself, or call Salvador my hometown? Or will that always ring a little false to both my ears and to others? The name for a native of Salvador, and I will never be a native, I was not born and raised here, but the name for a native of Salvador is a soteropolitano. I don't know if I would ever, well, yes. If I ever get to the point where I feel comfortable saying that Salvador is my hometown, then I think at that point I can also call myself a soteropolitano. But I still feel uncomfortable saying Salvador is my hometown. I wonder if any of you have any feelings. Write down in the comment section below. When does one have the right to call a place a hometown? I remember this acquaintance of mine. I'm no longer friends with him. I remember him once referring to San Francisco as his hometown, and how he was showing visitors from out of town his hometown. But not only had he didn't live in San Francisco, he lived in the suburbs. He never once lived in San Francisco, and he had only lived in the suburbs of San Francisco for a few years. So it rang very false to me when he called San Francisco his hometown. Or is one's hometown is where your heart is? And maybe I'm just being too rigid about the definition of hometown. I suppose a person has the right to call any place one's hometown, and there are no strict rules. And I'm just making a mountain out of a molehill? I'm not sure. Let me know what you think. But anyway, I hope that someday, not far in the future, I will feel comfortable calling Salvador my hometown, referring to it as my hometown without feeling like I'm being false. That'll ring true to my ears, but we'll see. Wow, I walked almost 5 hours today. That was exhausting, but I enjoyed it. I'm going to end this episode now. Thanks for joining. Beijos, ciao.